Welcome to this video overview of working with transactions in SureTax. In this tutorial, we'll cover how to add a transaction. After logging into SureTax, we arrive on the dashboard. The first of the icons at the top of the dashboard is the Add button, which we'll use to add a transaction. This opens the Add a Transaction dialog, where the first choice I can make is whether to add the transaction as a quote, unfinalized transaction, or final transaction. Today we'll be adding a quote. The rating month field is where you choose the month for the rates applicable. The months are numbered, so for example choosing 6 indicates the month of June. Client tracking and business unit are not required fields, but I'll go ahead and fill these out for my own use. Now let's add a line item. I can add either a transaction type code or any SKU that I currently have in the system. Since I have selected transaction type code, I'll go ahead and choose that from the drop-down. Total amount here means that I should add the total amount for all units. The system will not multiply an amount entered for individual units. So let's say I purchase some security sensors for a total amount of $45. Tax is not included in this amount, so I can leave that toggler at no, and the transaction date defaults to the current date, which I don't need to change at this time, so I'll proceed to the tax situs rule. My choice here indicates what situs rule applies to my ship to addresses. I'll leave it as the default, which is all addresses. Next I can choose a zip code to apply for ship to, ship from, order approval, and order placement. I could save the transaction here, but there is a section below to add more optional information, so let's have a look at that. So this is line 1, and I'm tracking customer numbers, so I'll enter that here. The invoice number is also up to me, so I'll leave that as is, and proceed to tax exemption code. Clicking here gives me a list of all exemption codes, and I can select all of them by clicking the box at the top. Unless I have exemptions for this invoice, I can leave it at the default status of no exemptions. I'll leave it as 1 unit, and the unit type defaults to access line. If you have a location code, you can enter it here. For regulatory code, I'll select retail. This is for a commercial client, so I'll change sales type code to commercial. Last is a user-defined field for any additional notes that I might want to add. Since I have none at this time, I'll go ahead and save the quote. A confirmation message displays, showing that the transaction was successfully added, and it contains a link to open the transaction, with the trans ID 251, which was generated by SureTax and assigned to this transaction. Let's have a look. So here we see the transaction ID, 251, at the top, with the customer number and the other information that I previously added. Remember that quotes do not show up on your report, and you cannot change a quote to a finalized or unfinalized transaction in the application. So if I click on more details, it takes me to the search screen, where I can search for transactions using customer number, invoice number, or several other criteria. The transaction ID is already entered in the search field, so that's why we only see the transaction that I just added. Here we can see the total revenue, fees, and total tax. From this screen I can also choose to export the transaction information as a CSV file. The export dialog tells me that each area of the transaction detail will be exported as a separate file, and asks me whether I want to export the header information, the line item summaries, or both. I selected both, but let's just have a look at the header file. I can see the values for the quote that we just added. These exported CSV files can be saved for your records, because again, transactions will not appear on your report. I saved and closed the CSV file, which returns us to the search screen. There will be a separate video covering the search function. For now, I will bring this tutorial to a close by clicking the Wolters Kluwer logo in the upper left of the screen. Thanks for watching our video on managing transactions in SureTax.